Imagine that it's a Saturday afternoon and your favorite football team is about to play. You sit on the couch, you turn on the TV, get a snack, and start watching the game. But then, horrible calls from the referee, 2 red cards being shown, an offside goal being allowed, and a bunch of other horrible mistakes. This is starting to be the reality for football fans, and it is slowly ruining the sport. In today's video, I'm going to talk about how football is slowly being ruined by bad officials, bad referees, too many games, too many injuries, too much money being involved. All of these problems are slowly ruining football, and I'm going to talk about it all right here in this video. The first major problem I want to talk about, and I've been seeing this a lot in the Premier League over any other league, and it is the quality of the referees and the VAR officials. VAR was obviously brought in a couple years ago to make referees' job easier and to provide more accurate results on offsides, on fouls, and all that type of stuff. But this season, we've really seen the downsides of VAR and how communication is really non-existent. The first game I'm going to talk about is the Tottenham Hotspur vs Liverpool game. Now, this wasn't the first mistake that VAR made, but it was probably the biggest talking point so far this season, where in the first half, Llouis scored a perfect goal for Liverpool. It was onside, it was an amazing goal. And everyone, people in the stadium, the fans, even the commentators, knew that this goal was onside. But for some reason, VAR checked the goal, they were reviewing it for probably 1 or 2 minutes, and they came up with the conclusion that it was offside. Now, obviously the goal was onside, but the main problem was the communication between the VAR officials and the referee. English is the most commonly known language in the world, and it is probably the easiest language in the world. How can you mess up communication that badly in a game of this importance? It is so simple to say either onside or offside. You don't have to say check complete, go with your opinion. You don't need to say all this complicated shit. It's onside or offside, that's it. Football is a simple sport with simple rules, and that's why it is loved by everyone in the world. So when you add these complicated problems and you overcomplicate the game, that's when you have a lot of mistakes. And in this game, clearly, this was probably the biggest mistake so far this season. The PGMOL obviously did release a statement after saying they're sorry, they're investigating the issue, but it doesn't change the fact that Liverpool, who could have gotten 3 points in this game, ended up with 0, and this could affect them in the long run at the end of the season. But it's not only a lack of communication that causes problems with the VAR officials and the referees. Another big problem, which I think is very apparent, is half of these officials have never even played the game before. I've played the game, many fans have played the game, but some of these VAR officials clearly have never even touched the football because they don't know the difference between a foul and a flop. The first example I'm going to give you guys was in the Manchester United against Manchester City game. In the first half, Manchester City had a free kick and there was a little scuffle in the box. Rodri ended up falling over. Now, after VAR reviewed this play for a few minutes, they ended up giving Manchester City the penalty, and obviously Haaland scored the goal. But if you would have played the game and you know what the game is about, you would know that this is not a foul. This happens in almost every single corner kick or free kick. There's always scuffles in the box. There's always a little bit of physicality, a little bit of grabbing. So this is nothing new. This happens in every single game. So you can't just call this out as a foul. Højlund was grabbing Rodri in this scenario, but only with the edge of his arm and his hand. He was grabbing him back, obviously trying to stop him from getting the ball. But there's not enough strength in your hand to cause Rodri to fall over. And Rodri was nowhere even near the ball. It looked like he had no chance of getting onto the ball. So there is no way that that is a foul. In my opinion, that's never a foul. One last example I want to give you guys of bad officiating in the Premier League is in the Arsenal vs Manchester City game. In this Arsenal game, Kovacic went for a pretty bad tackle in the 29th minute, and he ended up getting booked for a yellow card. Now, in my opinion, this could have even been a red card because he went into the tackle recklessly, he had his studs up, and for me, there was a chance that it could have been a red card. But he gave a yellow card, everything's okay. Only a few minutes later, Kovacic goes for another reckless tackle. No need at all. Arsenal were in their own half, and Kovacic goes for a reckless tackle on Declan Rice. This is 100% another yellow card. 100%. And the referee says, no card, it's just a foul. That makes absolutely no sense. Again, he went with his studs up. That should be another yellow card, and he should have 100% been sent off. Obviously, Arsenal did end up winning that game, and therefore this probably didn't have a big effect. But again, this goes back to my point on poor refereeing decisions, poor VAR decisions, and just miscommunication in general amongst all the officials. The second thing I want to talk about that I think is really ruining football is the fact that there is so many competitions and games being played. In terms of international competitions, let's take European clubs for example. They have the Euros, the World Cup, the UEFA Nations League, and friendlies. And if you look at club competitions, there are friendlies, domestic league games, domestic cup games, and UEFA Cup games. That is another 4 competitions that the elite of players from the elite of nations will have to compete in almost every single year. This is just simply too many competitions, which result in too much game time for these players. Some of these players, the highest level players, play every 2 or 3 days. That is way too much, and because of all these games that they're playing, this leaves a lot of room for injuries. Just in the recent international break alone, we've seen loads of injuries. Erling Haaland, Gavi, Vinicius Jr., Camavinga, Warren Zaire-Emery, loads and loads of injuries. And the reason why is because these players are simply playing too many games and their body can't keep up with it. Another rule that they added this season, which makes this even worse, is that they've added a new system that counts all the time wasted in each half of a football game. And because of this, at the end of each half, they're adding on more time to make up for the time that's wasted. This is one of the worst rules that I've ever seen in my life. If you look at the games from 3 or 4 years ago, at the end of the first half, at the end of the second half, you would have maybe 1 or 2 added minutes, and if you were lucky, maybe 3 or 4 added minutes. If you look at the games this season, every single game, at the end of the first half and at the end of the second half, they're adding on 6 minutes, 7 minutes, 8 minutes. In the Champions League, in the Copenhagen versus Manchester United game, at the end of the first half, they added on 13 extra minutes. I've never ever seen that before, adding on 13 extra minutes to one half. At the end of that Champions League game alone, the players played almost 120 minutes in a game that should have been 90 minutes. I don't understand this new rule, and again, this is just overcomplicating one of the best and simplest sports in the world. You cannot overcomplicate things. If players are time wasting, give them a yellow card. If they keep time wasting, give them a red card. You don't need to add on 15 extra minutes to every single game, because this again causes for more and more injuries when players are playing, first of all, a lot of games, back-to-back games, and now the games are, instead of 90 minutes, they're 120 minutes. It makes absolutely no sense. And with all these injuries that we are starting to see recently, this diminishes the quality of football that we get to watch, because the best players are all getting injured. If you look at Newcastle, for example, currently over 50% of their starting lineup is injured. So they have to play their bench players, they have to start their substitutions, and because of this, the quality of football will not be as good. The team won't perform as good, and the fans will not be as happy. One last problem that I want to talk about, which isn't really a big issue in most of the leagues, but this season in the Premier League, it is proving to be a big issue, and that is the FFP breaches. So basically, FFP stands for financial fair play, and all the big leagues around the world have this. And what this is meant to do is it's supposed to allow teams to only spend the amount of money that they earn, and they can't spend more than that. Because if they could, for example, Newcastle, who have Saudi owners that are worth billions, they could spend billions of dollars every transfer window and easily be the best team in the world. But FFP keeps Newcastle at an evil playing ground with all the other teams. But obviously, there are some teams that will try to take advantage of this, try and spend a little bit more than the FFP allows, and when they finally get found out, they are punished big time. We've already seen Everton this season get a 10-point deduction, which honestly isn't that bad. But we've seen Manchester City be accused of 115 breaches of the FFP rules. And if this were to be true, Manchester City would 100% get relegated. We've even seen Chelsea this season get accused of some other breaches back when Roman Abramovich was still the owner of the club, and supposedly he spent a little bit more money to buy certain players. I don't really know the whole story, but again, all of these teams now getting found out of breaking these financial fair play rules, and it is ruining the Premier League. And what I hate about this the most is that some of these clubs are turning into a business rather than a sports club. And for their business, they want to try and improve the team as much as possible and get the most money out of it. And because of that, they're trying to shift the rules a little bit, trying to spend a little bit more than they can. And when they get found out, it ruins the teams, it ruins the fans, and it ruins the Premier League. And that is the end of this video. Obviously, if you haven't noticed, I'm not the oldest football fan. I've only been watching football for the last 10 years or so. But the changes that I've seen from 10 years ago to today are incredible, and most of the changes, in my opinion, have been negative. So I just wanted to give you guys my opinions and my thoughts on all of these problems: the officiating, the FFP rules, the amount of injuries and games that we're seeing the players play. I think these are all very big issues that have to be resolved sooner than later if football is going to get back to what it once was. And obviously, if you did enjoy this video, remember to leave a like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff, and stay tuned for more videos.